One of the first steps to tying a fly is correctly placing the hook into the vise. We're going to show you how to do that on two different styles of vises. The first is this model, which is a Griffin vise. It's got two adjustments. It's got a front screw and then it's got a rear screw. And the front screw is just for holding the hook. And first off, you want to place the hook so that the bottom bend of the hook is in the jaws, like so. You don't want to bury the hook point inside the jaws or have this too far on the back. Just keep the bottom of the bend in the tip of the jaws. We then adjust the front screw so it just holds the hook in the vise. And you want the shank of the hook along the top here to be parallel to the ground or to the table. So now that this hook is just sitting in the vise, I can now go to the rear screw, turn it clockwise until it firmly holds the hook in the vise. It doesn't have to be cranked down tremendously, but enough where if you put your finger on the hook, you can bend the shank and not have that hook move on you. The next style of vise we'll look at putting the hook into is a Renetti style vise, and this particular model has two adjustments on it. It's got a front set screw where you will adjust the screw so it just holds the hook, and then it's got a swing cam that allows you to firmly hold the hook in the vise so that you can tie. So if we take our hook, once again we want to grab the hook right at the bottom bend. I will place that in the jaws, and I'm going to turn this front set screw so it just holds the hook. Once again, the hook shank is basically parallel to your tabletop. I now take the cam, move it back firmly, give it a push, and we're good to go with the Renetti. The first step when you're tying a fly after you have the hook securely in the vise is to attach the thread to the hook. So I've got my bobbin. I have about 4 inches of thread protruding out the end of the bobbin. I'm holding the bobbin with my forefinger and thumb on the button. I've got the bobbin itself cradled in my palm. I'm going to take the thread, I'm going to have it on the far side of the hook, away from me at a diagonal like so. I'm going to make several wraps up towards the eye of the hook, over the top of the hook and away from myself. So you wrap over and away from yourself. Make a few wraps forward. Now I'm going to reverse direction and start wrapping backwards towards the rear of the hook. And I've effectively now trapped that thread with each wrap, and it is securely on the hook. And now I can take this tag end, we call it, get my scissors, trim it, and we're ready to continue tying our fly. One of the real fundamental skills of fly tying is learning how to securely attach a material to the hook and have it stay where you want it to. There are many different ways to do this, but the method we're going to learn today is a version of the soft loop. And I have got my thread attached to the hook, and I've also laid down a base of thread that I'm going to attach the material to. It's far better to have a layer of thread down and attach the material. If you were just to attach it to a bare hook shank, it'll tend to want to roll around on that relatively slippery surface. Now I've got a piece of marabou, and this is a material that we typically use for a tail on a salmon fly or a woolly bugger. And in this case, I want to attach it to the hook shank, and I want it to stay directly on top of that shank. And as I'm tying it in, I don't want it to roll around to the far side on me. I want to keep it right on top. So if I measure it out, place it right on top, I'm now going to transfer it to my left hand. I'm going to take my thread. I've got about 1.5 inches of thread from the tip of the bobbin up to the hook. I'm going to come up softly around and back down, and you can just let your bobbin hang at this point. Check and make sure that that material's on top and hasn't rolled around the far side of the hook. Now I'm still softly going to come back up, and at this point I'm going to pull straight up on the thread, and you're going to see the material cinch down to the hook right there. So it's cinched in. Now I'm going to make 3 or 4 more wraps, one directly on top of the previous, and they're nice firm wraps. Check my material, looks good, it's on top of the hook, and it's successfully on there.